friends, it's Carly, and welcome to another episode of the I Learned podcast. I hope you enjoyed the lyrics of that song. It's called Front Porch by Joy Williams, and it really just clicked in my consciousness yesterday, and I've had it on repeat since then. And really, as I look at it, as I process through the lyrics and reflect on what she's talking about, this front porch, it's like the front porch of your soul. Like it's a song between you and you. Like it's not about any external person or thing or circumstance. It is like sometimes we run away from ourselves. Sometimes we run away from the thing that's hurting us, the thing that's hard to face or scary to face, and that really it's okay to do that. Like it's totally okay. And when you realize that here is actually where what you want is, you can come back, and it doesn't matter what you did while you were gone. You can come back and you can have that connection with your soul at any time. Like that part of it really stands out to me. I also really like at the beginning when she says there are no wrong roads and no window stays closed. Love is always sad when it fades. The glass is better stained anyways. It's so true that like those trips that we make away from who we really are nothing to be mad about, are nothing to demonize or vilify. Like those excursions away from who we really are is how we figure out with such clarity exactly who it is that we are trying to be from our soul level. So I want to put like a big blanket of love around this concept of numbing and running away from who we really are and trying to shut it off. Like there's this tendency when we go through hard things to want to feel better. I feel like that's kind of a very deeply rooted soul level knowing that when you don't feel good, you should feel better. And that's not wrong. And there are a lot of shortcuts to feeling better. She also actually mentioned shortcuts she says she took the long way looking for the shortcut. And oh my God, I'm like, all the ways that I have numbed myself into feeling better only to realize that that wasn't sustainable. That like as soon as the alcohol wears off, like, okay, now I'm sad again. So that didn't work. That wasn't a long-term solution. But there are a lot of people, myself included, like I shared a few episodes ago, where I've been practicing that habit of having a few beers every evening at pretty much every day for like 3 years. I did that. And that was new behavior for me. I hadn't done it up until just a few years ago. And it was to like cope with stress. And we can get all into the reasons why we feel so uncomfortable that we need to numb. We need to, turn down the volume on what's going on in our inner world because it's uncomfortable. And I feel like to have this conversation about numbing, I want to lay some groundwork before I really get into basically I've asked myself what are all of the ways that I can see from where I am now, knowing what I know about, everything I've learned up to this point. How are all the ways that I've numbed myself? And I have a whole page. I have a whole list of things. And so basically I'm going to talk through here are the ways that I numb myself. Here are the ways that I see myself doing that. And I am wanting to be totally transparent and, real talk about these things because I know it can be helpful. It's a helpful vehicle to put yourself in these stories and see if there's any truth to them for yourself, keep your bullshit meter alive and well all the time. And as you hear my story, run it through your system and see if there's any truth of it in your story. somebody told me here not too long ago that when they listen to my podcast episodes, it triggers them, but in a great way. It like pulls their healing forward. And I gotta say, that's like one of the coolest compliments I've ever gotten. I've been told my whole life that I'm intense. And I also was listening to the Book of Water this morning, and there was an awesome quote in there where it says like the higher vibrations, higher frequencies of Scorpio energy learns how to receive someone telling them that they're intense and learns how to answer by saying intense for who, and understanding that everyone is at their own space, everyone is at their own place. And that's why I totally trust that every single one of these episodes comes together in a way where it is literally a time capsule, is how I look at it, where anybody at any point can rendezvous with this specific package of information and experience. And I do think it's interesting that this one began with me singing, because that is an exercise that I practice with myself in healing my perfectionist tendencies. Actually, perfectionism is another way that I know that I numb myself. And as far as like what I think of it as like perfectionistic avoidance, where like you can't do it because it's not perfect enough, it's not good enough, and reaching for making it more perfect instead of actually like doing the thing, launching the thing. Like you spend forever in editing mode and then eventually just give up because you didn't do it as good as you wanted to do it, instead of publishing what you actually did. I keep myself held back a lot by avoiding things that I can't be perfect enough at. And some of those things bring me true joy, like singing. Like singing feels like an extension of my channeling abilities, and channeling has a lot of, this is another quote from the Book of Water that I heard this morning, cultural salad dressing. Channeling as a concept has a lot of cultural salad dressing on it. And people think they know what it means. As far as like just total transparency, when I say channeling, I mean we all have energy flowing through us all the time, in the form of emotional energy moving through our bodies. And how we choose to acknowledge and translate that energy is a reflection of who we are. You know, it's a form of self-expression, what we choose to do with our emotional energy. And when I have this kind of emotional energy, there is something very soothing about singing, especially a slow song. Like if you listen across time to like all the songs that like really heal my soul, they all sound just about the same. They all have like this really slow, like connected rhythm. My dog is chasing flies in my room. If you can hear her little clicky toes, that's what that is. That's Scooby. So anytime you hear her clicky toes, you can like send some good vibes to the Scroober. The flies help her get her exercise, is how I give thanks for the endless clicky toes in my room. But anywho, so I feel like I have to put that like blanket of love around this concept of numbing that says every ounce of trying to feel better is never wrong. Just like the opening line of the song says, there are no wrong roads. And I want to just wrap that around this concept of numbing before we ever break into it, to say there is nothing wrong with trying to feel better. That is a noble urge, and there are healthy ways to feel better, and there are counterproductive ways to feel better, and none of it's wrong. And we're each in the driver's seat of where we are in our world, what we need to meet our needs, and we're allowed to script it and mix the cocktail of self-care however we need to. so that we are performing at our best. And as we lean towards doing our inner work and learning coping skills for emotions, learning emotion management, the skills naturally build and eventually can support us to remove more and more and more of the numbing elements of our behavior. And that is all to say that you can numb all you want. You can, like, there's nothing wrong with it. And sometimes things hurt so bad that the only thing that is keeping you from committing suicide is numbing yourself. So maybe numbing yourself is okay. It's totally okay if that's where you are, and there are still things in your world that you do intentionally, knowing that this numbs who I am and I'm going to do it anyway. So I would have to say, like, I'm in that boat with you. You are not alone. So I want to introduce a few concepts into this conversation before I go through my list of things that I do to numb or have done in the past. The first thing I want to talk about is sensitivity. And with sensitivity comes the second concept of escapism. And basically this idea that when you're a sensitive being, when you're picking up a lot of information, a lot of energy, a lot of different kinds of energy from a lot of different sources, it doesn't take long before your system is fried. So that sensitivity and that receptivity and picking up of the energy, if you're not practicing the other end of that, of like letting it flow, like, you know, you breathed it in, now you need to exhale it. If you're breathing in your whole entire life, you're out of balance. There's when you have heightened sensitivity, you have a heightened need to keep that balance, because basically we all swing on a spectrum of, you know, highs and lows. And when you're sensitive, your spectrum is wider than your arms can reach. It is like the span of human experience of the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And when you're deeply aligned with who you are, you're living these highs that, like, people swinging in a smaller spectrum, they could never even imagine how good you feel when you are in alignment with your system. And when you're out of alignment with your system, when you're constantly inhaling and never exhaling, you're living the lowest of the lows. And again, people on a smaller spectrum have no capacity to understand how awful, how hollow, how empty it feels to be disconnected from who you really are. And learning to exhale is basically emotion management. And that's kind of this silver lining that we're going to wrap around it right from the start of, like, basically, and here's where I'm going to, like I said, total transparency. I want to be honest with myself, and I want to be honest with you in a way that serves my highest good and the highest good of anybody who would ever hear this message. I still, like I said, I still numb myself on purpose sometimes. I intentionally do that to support my highest good, because basically what's coming to me is that I bottled things up for a really long time, and I'm still working through my backlog, you know, in the grand scheme of things. Like, I'm still healing my mother wound, and I'm only just now beginning to scratch the surface of, like, my relationship with my cousin and all of the karmic healing that's there, and all of everything through my relationships. It's been necessary for my sanity to keep a pace that my brain can handle, that my brain can process. There's only so much I can do in a day, and sometimes allowing the part that you can handle to come through, and then, okay, that's enough. Like, that's all I can take for right now. That is an honoring of yourself. That's an honoring of your system, and understanding where you are and practicing tools to handle, that piece that comes through every day. And as you get better at it, you got more days of handling a piece of it, and the piece that you're capable of handling maybe gets a little bigger, a little bigger, a little more connected to the deeper root of any trauma that you might have gone through. We work through it in the layers of what we're ready to handle. Our unfolding is never going to give us more than we're ready to handle. And so the urge to numb is kind of the brake pedal, like our car is going along and we could zoom forward. There's always more. There's always more depth to explore, but sometimes we're tired. Our soul is tired and we just need to rest. Not so much I guess our soul is tired, more our body is tired, our mind is tired. Like those shifts of healing our vibrations and moving and shifting our energy, it consumes energy. Like we have to rest to refill and recharge after a healing episode. So it's totally normal to want to tap the brake pedal every once in a while and to get some disconnection, some separation. And the more you do it, the less you really are who you truly came to be. And the less you're doing it, the more you're allowing the real you to come through, and making that switch to opening up to allow the real you to come through. That's where I say, like, I've been bottling stuff for a long time. I have guilt, I have shame, I have all kinds of hard emotions about things that I don't even necessarily understand because it happened so long ago, but I have the emotion of it still. And I've been shoving all of that down. So if I'm allowing the real me, that's the shit that's coming through. That's the stuff that's rising to the surface for me to process. Or each and every single one of those moments that I did something where it was definitely a moment of experiencing, this is not who I am. I did this because I didn't know any better in the moment. But this is not who I am. I can't live with this. I will live with it because I'm going to learn from it and I'm never going to do it again. And in this, I am talking about cheating on my high school boyfriend. Yeah, that guilt. Wow, like holy shit. This is probably in the category of something that I would say I let go of a long time ago, but I don't think I really did in this like kind of deep cathartic way of like truly releasing it. I think I internalized a lot of the shame, and in the moment of making the decision to do that, it was a total lack of awareness of the extent of the harmful ripple effects of my actions on another person. And it literally happened one time, and in the doing of it, something felt off. This feels wrong. It doesn't feel satisfying like I thought that it would. And so that was an instant clue, like, okay, well, I don't want to keep doing this. So that didn't happen again. And so now I'm back to the, relationship, and a whole year goes by and I just keep what I did to myself. And I got to the point where I couldn't live with myself anymore. And I laid on top of him to like, we were like, cuddling or whatever. And I laid on top of him and I told him that I had cheated on him with who it was. And this was his friend. Not like a best friend or anything, but they were definitely friends. And I felt his heart break apart. It felt like my heart broke apart and I couldn't breathe because he was like in so much pain, and he pushed me away instantly and was so angry. And I felt like I mean, the betrayal of the trust that he had for me, like I broke it, and I broke his heart in the process, and in doing so broke my heart in the process. So I learned, like, no, like, okay, I did that because I'm a learn by doing kind of person, and I made this choice. And oh my God, like in experiencing what I knew for a fact as I was living it, I knew for a fact this is not who I am. This is not my intention. This is not what I meant to be. This is not in alignment with what I want to feel. And that has been the one and only time that I've ever gone down that road, because that was enough. That was enough times to learn my lesson. And contrast to that with, and like, just to be totally transparent and connect these dots and make sure that like my point is coming through, of like, I absolutely cheated on my boyfriend to numb myself. Like, the relationship with my boyfriend was suffering. We had been together for a couple years already, and like now I know that that's kind of a period that I've come to in a lot of relationships. It's like this level of clarity that like we really know each other. Do you want to continue being together? And look at my past, like basically all of them don't survive that time. And that's why, like, when Dolly and I celebrated our 2-year anniversary last month, um I told her, I'm like, this officially counts as like maybe the second longest relationship I've ever had. We're doing great, compared to all of these other relationships. We've gotten to the clarity stage, at least in a large part, and we're still going. So that's very encouraging. But back to that high school relationship, like the relationship itself was suffering, and my connection with my boyfriend was not as good as it had been, a lot because I know now, because my own insecurities were getting in my own way. But I sought to make myself feel better by indulging in someone else whose energy was brand new, and therefore my like practiced behavior like wasn't contaminating the relationship yet. So of course it felt better to start with someone new. And yeah, like this has been a pattern of like using sex and relationships and breaking up with relationships to numb who I am and what I want, instead of facing my truth to that other person and saying what I need to say. I'll just leave. I'll just break up with them and go be someone else, like go be the new version of myself and let life happen around me there. And there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing, but I also I took on this year of 2021, the year of speaking truth, and I feel like in the relationship I'm in now, I I am going to see, at least see the relationship through to ultimate truth and revealing my ultimate truth, and we're working through that in stages. It's a very delicious process. And I want to be bold and brave and confident enough in myself to bear my whole truth to another person without assuming that they would reject it and walking away proactively. Like that really is a lot about self-preservation, and like also though, like not settling for what wasn't right for me. Like I can feel, I'm very sensitive, and I know a lot of us are too. And that sensitivity, it brings such powerful energy moving through you all the time. And what you do with that powerful energy and that discomfort, you try to make yourself feel better. And when you're younger, the way you do it might be considered like a shortcut compared to what you know now. And so we outgrow some of those old ways that we used to try to make ourselves feel better. And sometimes it's, one time of trying that way and, oh, nope, okay, never doing that again. And other times, like me and alcohol, like we go way back and like had a very close relationship up until 15 days ago. Today will be day 16 in my switching it up and not drinking alcohol. Um, and that's pretty huge. Like me to not have that evening routine of having a few beers, it has opened up a level of honesty with myself about, why am I pressing on the brake pedal? Because simultaneously I'm wanting to go forward, and I'm wanting to expand, and I'm wanting to, live my purpose. And that is becoming stronger and stronger every day as I learn my purpose and resonate more and more with what it is. And, up until 15, 16 days ago, every evening I'm having a few beers and going to bed buzzed. And that to me is pressing on the brake pedal. So I'm splitting my energy. I'm saying I want to go faster and I want to go forward and I want to expand and move on in my evolution. And I'm pressing the brake pedal every day. So it's like, oh, okay. And all of that is only occurring to me 16 days after, 15, 16 days after I haven't had any alcohol recently. So while I was in it, it just felt like what I feel like doing. And so that's what I did. And when I stopped, it literally was because I don't feel like doing that. I feel like I said on a few episodes ago, like I feel like it's a step backwards from where I am. Like I have other things I would rather do. And that is the process that I really want to, again, wrap us in this blanket of love of there are no wrong roads. You walk the road that seems like the best road you can walk while it's the best road you can walk, period. And if you come up to a place where you see a road that is even better, is more satisfying, leave behind the old road and go to the new road and let it be that simple. And that is my progression with my drinking of alcohol, it seems. And at this point, I shared last time about having a year ago, I had like 35 days of not drinking alcohol and I was feeling so good. My creativity was so powerful compared to what it had been. And I was so enjoying that new flow. And then I celebrated an occasion by having a couple of beers and didn't drink again for 7 days. And then I celebrated that I didn't drink for 7 days by having a couple beers. And from that day forward, I pretty much drank every day again for a year. So, like, it's a slippery slope when it comes to how easy of a shortcut it is. It's so simple. All you got to do is sit there. You could even like tune out and numb even more and turn on some Netflix. And then you could like have a gigantic dinner of all of your favorite foods. Oh my goodness. Like that for me was like basically, every evening I numbed myself out through that few beers, through a big dinner, through Netflix and watching something and disengaging completely. And that worked for me for a long time because, like I said, there's only so much one can take. And we pump the brakes as much as we need to. And eventually it felt like, no, but I don't want to pump the brake. So I'm just gonna not pump the brake for a while and see what happens. And I haven't been pumping that particular brake for 15, 16 days now. And I really like it. I really, really like not pumping that brake. And thanks to my experience last year, I know that I have a slippery grasp on not falling into those shortcuts. I can get very addicted very easily to those kinds of shortcuts. I'm still going through my numbing with food. That is like, it's a behavior that I'm aware of, and I continue to practice eating mindfully, like eating to feed my body, not entertain myself. I eat to entertain myself often as a numbing mechanism, mostly in the evenings. So, yeah, we're just being super transparent here. I'm also like probably helpful to like contrast for maybe your specific experience. Like, I have the hardest time with my behaviors in the evenings as I'm winding down for the day before sleep because I'm a morning person. I wake up with all my energy, and as the day goes, my energy gets less and less and less and less and less and less and less until my charger is dead and I need to go, or my battery's dead and I need to go plug it into the charger overnight. And then I'll wake up tomorrow morning with all the energy I'm going to have for the day. And then throughout the day, I spend it. And by the time I get to the end of the day and I have no energy, it's like I have very little, very little defense power or ability to resist just numbing. Like, that's all I can do. And I see it as a beautiful step forward that for the last 16 days, I'm able to not press on that particular break of drinking alcohol. Meanwhile, like I said, like I still watch Netflix in the evenings. I still eat probably more than I should. I indulge in desserts every single day. I have to have them. I don't have to have them, but this is part of an emotional numbing process that I'm engaging in. And while not drinking alcohol anymore is really great, and that has sufficed on that for the moment, that's not to say that that was the only way that I was numbing. And I realized I learned these behaviors very early on, like even before I was in high school, before I was sexually active, before I was indulging in substances. When I was a little kid, I indulged in overworking. I kept myself so busy. I was either doing schoolwork or doing worksheets that my mom had made for me or reading books for library credit or like, I mean, I was achieving. I was achieving, and that was numbing. That was numbing in its purest form because I'm not good enough yet. I'm not good enough yet. That's the tape that plays under constant achievement. And I've had that tape playing. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. It's part of my perfectionistic avoidance. It's part of my like habit of achievement, my goal oriented meeting my goals, because if I can, accomplish my goals, then I'll be accomplished. And there's value in that, that I'm seeking that value because I don't inherently sense it within myself. So it's really interesting to reflect back to childhood even, and to recognize that one, I've always been this sensitive, and two, I haven't had until the last 5 or 6 years, I haven't had the skills or the coping tools to deal with that sensitivity. And numbing was the natural response because I can't handle this. So I must numb it. And that was my relationship with it up until I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to say that's why the emotional intelligence piece was so powerful. And that was maybe 2014, 2013. I know I had the date of it around here somewhere. And I shared it on the Instagram before. But that piece that said, like, basically I tested in this group of coworkers, they sent us to a 3-day training, and there was like 40 of us, and out of the class I was tied with one other person for being like the highest emotional intelligence. And that really undercut my story of I'm not capable of handling this, therefore I must numb. And it really opened me to the idea of emotion management and the idea that maybe I'm more capable than I thought I was. And it was not an overnight solution. I mean, that was like easily 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8. And what that did was kickstart this journey of learning tools for emotion management. And for me, I would say the most powerful tool is journaling. Every day I try to write things that I'm grateful for. And if there are any big things going on emotionally, like if there's energy that I can't seem to shake, if there's something manifested in my world that really triggered me, I go straight to my journal and I write it down. I write down what happened. What were the pieces of what happened? And that helps me to see it more clearly and to brainstorm what other pieces is this connected to, because never, if something triggers us, never is it about the actual moment that you're triggered by. It's about what is the deeper thing going on underneath the trigger that this person has happened to step on. So brainstorming more deeply into why was this so upsetting, and answering that question and being honest with myself and taking responsibility for the things that I was feeling. That came from Abraham. That piece came later, a few years later. I was finally ready to hear that these emotions are your responsibility. Like they're all a reflection of you. Everything that you feel is a reflection of you. That's what Abraham teaches. You know, that emotion that you're feeling is the gap between you and your inner being. And when we feel really, really, really good, that's because we are floating in the center of our inner being. We are aligned with our inner being. And when we feel really, really, really bad, our conscious mind is looking at the situation very differently. Total disagreement from your inner being. And when that happens, it doesn't feel good because you're disconnected from your whole self, your whole soul, the whole of you, the larger part of you, your highest self that could never all fit into your body, and yet you're disconnecting you and your body from your whole soul by seeing something differently than your inner being sees it. To merge with your inner being, you have to see things like your inner being sees them. And that's a process, right? So then, 5 years with Abraham studying that material and taking ownership of my emotions and all of that. And now here I am, eight years later, 5 years of Abraham later, of like, I feel ready to let go of the numbing habit of alcohol. And that feels huge. And it helped me to realize that there were lots of having like numbing habits along the way that I did let go of already. And that feels like a really nice place to rest my focus for a while. And not just jump straight to these are all the ways that I'm still numbing and I need to quit it so I can be who I really am. Like, no. Like, I tell myself, no, Carly, no. We're running away from ourselves. Like we're getting all wrapped up in needing to be perfect and needing to have it all figured out and needing to fast forward to the end where it's all certain and all known. Like, nope, I still got some bad habits. I'm not perfect yet. We're all a little splintered and battered. Like that's what that song said at the beginning. Some of the other ways, let's see. Ooh, this is a good one. Some of the other ways that I numb: caring for others. I make others so important to me and their happiness so important to me, and I give everything to creating their happiness, and witnessing their happiness is all I need. And when that person goes through their own hard minute and they can't exhibit happiness for me to witness, I'm devastated because that's how that isn't sustainable, right? Like seeing other people happy is such a short-term spike, and it's lovely, and caring for others and nurturing others is a beautiful thing, and I do it all the time. I have 4 animals living in my house with me because I love to nurture, but I also have to myself, I've learned to be mindful of that relationship, and like my relationship and the benefits that I get from nurturing these animals. And I also cultivate a practice that's completely independent of anything else, where I'm nurturing myself and I'm creating my own happiness, and I'm watching my own happiness and finding satisfaction in that, and letting everything else be irrelevant in that process of my sole focus being my own satisfaction. And as I practice that more and more and more, what seems to be happening is that my capacity for nurturing others is getting bigger. So while I was partially using it to numb, I also do really want to be of service. I love to nurture, like I said, and using it to numb and using it as a shortcut was keeping my nurturing ability at a small, finite size. And now, where I've learned how to source energy through my own internal process, my ability to nurture and support others is getting bigger and bigger and bigger as I get better and better and better at sourcing my own energy within myself. So honestly, like that, as far as like if you identify with yourself as a nurturer, that's like my best sales pitch of do your self-care, do your inner work, find that energy within you, because it lets you have so many more of those nurturing experiences. And yes, they are just as delicious as you think that they are. Another one that is on my list of ways that I've numbed is social media and my phone in general. Like when I uninstalled Facebook from my phone, this was maybe like, I know it was cancer season, because I thought that that was very interesting, that I was like, enough with the world. Like, I just want to be in my little shell. Um, so yeah, it's been almost a couple months ago, maybe. And it was so fascinating how many times I would just like, without even thinking about it, my hand would grab my phone, unlock my phone. I had Facebook like 3 pages to the right on purpose, so that I had to scroll 3 pages to the right. And then I would be tapping a screen where there was no longer an app because it was so unconscious that I was like, I think my social media and my scrolling, and we can do that just as easily on YouTube or whatever, Instagram or whatever other platform, but I was personally doing it on Facebook. Um, and it was so much an unconscious numbing mechanism, numbing my boredom, I think, um, and going to like scrolling just to squelch the boredom in that moment. And it was so funny how many times I'm like sitting there, like tapping multiple times this like blank empty screen where there is no app. I uninstalled it. And I still, so many times. I haven't done it for quite a while. It took a while for that behavior to stop, for me to stop reaching for that numbing thing, like that mechanism. So that one was very funny to me. Netflix and chill, like that's a thing for a reason. I think a lot of us Netflix, and I mean, whatever your equivalent is, whether you're on HBO or Hulu or YouTube or whatever, you're disconnecting from your current reality by binging on a different reality. Like, I have moods, and when I'm in a certain mood, I want that. And when I'm in a different mood, I want that. And my typical evening mood is Schitt's Creek or something funny, something light and like easy breezy, like not deep, not serious, entertaining, funny. Like that's my go-to. And that's a numbing mechanism. That's a like a desire to disconnect from my inner world. I would rather be in the Schitt's Creek world than in my inner world. And so, I mean, that's one that's, I still do that very frequently, I would say. Um, Food, we talked about, is ongoing for me, and sleep. Um, I I sleep a lot, and I do think that that is another numbing mechanism, that sometimes that is the best thing we can do, is just go to sleep. Just stop it for right now. Just let that rest for just a minute, and let the frenzy, let the waters clear, let the frenzy die down just a little bit. And so, again, like, sleep is another one that I partake in quite a bit. I take a lot of naps, and I sleep a long time at night on a regular basis. And then, like, once a week, like, I need like one night that's like 12 hours of sleep. And there's probably a nap on either side of that, because I need to rest. And that it's just one of those things that, like, this is what I reach for when I ask myself, like, what would help me feel better right now? A nap. A nap would help me feel better right now. So again, I go back to this concept of like numbing, like channeling, has all of this cultural salad dressing on it. I just love that. Um, Numbing has a bad rap, and I don't think that it's unwise that our car has a brake pedal. Like, the road is winding, and as we come up to a sharp curve or a roundabout, or we need to take a sharp left turn or whatever, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to take a pause. And that's where I think, like, a healthy amount of numbing and guiding ourselves to a speed of movement that feels good to us is kind of it's kind of part of our purpose, like, as individuals, as comers forth of individual souls. Like, we're here to figure out, like, how do we rise to our unique essence in its fullest, and figuring out a pace that works for us is a big part of that. And numbing is a big part of pacing. Like, when we pump the brakes, yes, we are slowing ourselves down, but maybe we're not really as ready to get to our next destination as we think we are. That maybe our numbing is our soul reaching for that pacing mechanism. And if we more accept that we're numbing, and knowing it for what it is, as this divine slowdown that's helping us to constantly be at the right place at the right time for our highest good, the more we accept that, the less we beat up on ourselves. And honestly, the less we beat up on ourselves, the less we're aggravating our own sensitivity, and the less we'll need to numb in the first place. So, that acceptance piece and that self forgiveness piece of taking these roads where you've numbed yourself, maybe for a long time, maybe with things that you're ashamed of, you've made decisions that you're not proud of, that if you could go back from where you are now, you would totally do it differently. But the only reason you know that is because you did it the way you did it in the first place, you know? And yeah, perfectionistic avoidance was the last one. And that, for me, I also wrote down as hyper focused on perfection covers up I'm not good enough. And that's where I'm going to leave us. I'm going to do a few tarot cards that I feel like sum this up so perfectly, as usual. So, like I said, as usual, these cards are on point for our discussion that we've had up to this point on numbing, sensitivity, escapism, and emotion management. And when it comes to emotion management, there is no wiser being than the King of Cups. In tarot, cups represents our emotions. The suit of cups represents our emotions. So the king is kind of that highest evolution of that energy and wisdom when it comes to our emotions. So thinking back to all of this talk we've done on emotion management and kind of building those skills naturally over time, and letting those skills take more and more and more pressure off of the amount that you feel like you need to numb. So letting that process evolve, however it is, and kind of make one baby step a day towards that goal of I want to support myself with my own emotional wisdom. Kind of let that intention be your guide as you take those daily baby steps. So as always, these cards, you can see the picture on my Instagram at Owning Authenticity, and I am working with the Light Seers Tarot, which as always is my favorite deck. So we will start with this King of Cups. The keywords are love, emotional intelligence, patience, experience, stability and balance, creativity, diplomacy, someone supportive, being nurturing, and a wise leader. He softens his gaze and reaches for his singing bowl. When something unexpected comes into the King of Cups awareness, something that may shake another person's composure and send them into a state of stress or anger, he regulates his emotional state with his mature, practiced, meditative energy. Finding the sweet spot between the empathic heart and intelligent mind is the key to the successful leadership style. Allow your emotional intelligence to guide you as you seek to marry logic, kindness, and love. If you are in a situation that asks you to navigate tumultuous energies, find your grounded serenity by calmly choosing care and diplomacy over force. In shadow, this king can suggest that you may be feeling withdrawn, moody, or temperamental, or you may be losing touch with how others are feeling at this time. Stay clear of situations that feel emotionally manipulative. Instead, seek to understand others through empathy, tolerance, and compassion, and emotional fulfillment will be yours. The affirmation is, my heart holds deep wisdom and love, and I use it to connect and lead. Yeah, and I think this card sums up the highest potential of that sensitivity that makes it so tempting to want to numb, because the energy moving through you is powerful. It is just as powerful as it feels. And if you don't have any skills to surf that energy, it mostly feels like a tsunami landing on top of you. You know, you drown in it and you just want to get to air. You just want to get out of it. And that is normal. If you don't have the skills to handle it, it's normal. But when you practice emotion management, it's like learning how to be a world-class surfer and learning how to ride on those big, powerful emotional waves and make the most of that energy to channel it productively towards what you want, towards your manifesting powers. It's very powerful. And yes, this King of Cups character represents, like, when you learn emotion management, what's possible? Everything. Like, we are the keepers of our own fate, and learning these kinds of tools can literally point us on a whole different life path. And that's a beautiful segue, I guess, to our next card being the Ace of Swords, which, for those of you, I don't know if it's really a thing where, like, it goes wands, cups, swords, pentacles in the book. They're in that order. I don't know if there is a progression to those. I think there definitely could be, because, like, wands are the spark, the fire. Cups are the emotions, or I think our staying power for something is found in our emotional energy. And then we engage our voice and our communication through the sword suit. And then pentacles, or material abundance and manifestations, are the outcome or the ending of that cycle. So I think there's definitely something to that could be an evolution. And if you believe that, if that passes your BS test, as it did mine, the King of Cups is immediately followed. The next card in the deck is the Ace of Swords. So this card, the keywords are new ideas, clarity, an aha moment, truth revealed, awareness and heightened states of consciousness, memory or thought, communication, victory, success and triumph, a stroke of genius. Massive clarity is on the way. A new door is opening for you, often unveiling a life-changing idea or a significant spiritual breakthrough. Expect aha moments of lucidity to pierce your awareness and to reveal a totally fresh vision for the future. As this essence spirals into comprehension, use this time to see things as they really are and to tune in to new beginnings. The quiet insight of the unconscious mind is being made available for you so you may experience a rapid expansion as your conscious mind integrates this newfound information. Know that nothing can compete with the fierce rays of wisdom and truth. So if you are finding yourself with clouded judgment or with stalled thinking, it's time to seek the brightly lit energy of honesty. Gather your discernment, your intellect, your logic, and your insight, and clearly communicate the truth that is bubbling up to be witnessed. And the affirmation is, I experience brilliant moments of clarity. Which I feel like is exactly how this whole conversation came to be. This like seed that landed in my brain and instantly sprouted into this episode around numbing, around the stigma around numbing, around the urge and why we numb, around like going back to the very beginning of this episode, wrapping all of this in this blanket of love and acceptance and forgiveness that says there's no wrong being done in any of this. That just all of a sudden felt like the most important thing that I could use my voice to say. And thus here we are reading these, or doing this whole episode and reading these tarot cards. So the last card is Major Arcana 20, Judgment. This card and I have had a very interesting relationship. I think I was scared of this energy early on because it basically involves having your truest, deepest self seen, like fully, transparently. And I was afraid, as I think a lot of us can probably identify with that fear. But over time, as I've done my internal work, as I've taken those baby steps every day towards this goal of building up my tools to manage my emotions and be secure within my own energy, this card, it's one of my favorites. It's so empowering. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. The keywords of Major Arcana 20 Judgment are self-realization and understanding, spiritual awakening, redemption, knowing your motives and your heart to be true, total transparency, a glorious unveiling of spirit. You have judged others and have been judged yourself, and you are awakening to the understanding that the only approval that really matters is your own. Are you doing your best with others and with yourself? It's time to shed any negative facades. Drop the masks behind the masks. It may feel risky, yet this profound act of self-acceptance will unleash your absolute essence. You are light, shadow, matter, and consciousness, and you are a miracle. Why, then, do you keep your true nature hidden away from the world? There is no way to really understand your full potential until you are open and honest with your own heart without judgment. To expand and evolve requires this colossal forgiveness of the self. Forgive your beautiful soul. Accept your beautiful heart. As you do, you consciously answer the call of your highest self, and the vastness of your horizon will make itself available to you. Hello, Essence. I invite you to show up every day. I invite my soul to shine unapologetically. I feel like this card takes me back to the beginning of this episode where I sang this song that sounds like running away from ourselves when things get hard, aka numbing, and coming back home to the front porch, to our soul self whenever we're ready. And that there is nothing but total forgiveness waiting for us inside of this journey within ourselves. And sometimes, like for me, and I'm sure with most souls, the act of self-forgiveness it's not a gavel that falls and, oh, I've forgiven myself, I've forgiven myself, I've forgiven myself. It's an onion, like so many other things in soul work. It is an onion that we are going to peel, hopefully for many years to come. We'd hate to be bored. So it's a matter of a process of self-acceptance. You know, when we hear act of self-acceptance, act of self-forgiveness, we think that's something that we're going to do one time and then we're going to be good to go. And it's really more of a lifestyle than, you know, a college certificate of diploma. So it's something that we cultivate within ourselves when we've bottled things up our whole lives, like what I was describing, where, you know, now that I'm allowing my true self to flow through, there are things bubbling to the surface that are uncomfortable. There are things that are part of my truth that aren't perfect, and yet I'm feeling inclined and inspired to share them anyway. Like the singing at the beginning of this episode. And if anything, I am seeing from where I'm sitting in this moment that is a veil of vulnerability that I drape over my content that wards off the people who aren't meant to hear it. You know, when I expose my own imperfection, when I expose my own vulnerability, only the people who are comfortable in their vulnerability can get through it to hear what I'm really trying to say. And I don't think that's by accident. I think it's like nature's protection for a soft-hearted creature like me. It's so counterintuitive and yet poetically beautiful that like my heart is so tender and soft, and the more I share my authentic, tender, soft heart with others, the more protected I really am, because this was one of my favorite quotes, and I might have even shared it in the last episode, but like scorpionic energy of seeing through to the truth of the emotional energy that's present within anybody, like basically seeing behind people's masks. This is one of my superpowers, is being able to see the truth of the emotional energy in front of me. And when people aren't ready to know the truth of their own emotional energy, they don't want to hear what I have to say. And by exploring my own vulnerable, imperfect, authentic truth in this out loud way, I think, I'm pretty sure this is where this is coming from. I think it inspires other people. It like implicitly creates this safety for their imperfect self to express itself. And that feels like me doing my soul's work. So like, I think so often we look for our purpose outside of ourselves. And today I'm realizing, like on an even deeper level, that my soul's work, my soul's purpose is to manage my own emotional energy. Period, end of story. And the truth of the matter is, telling these stories and making these podcast episodes are part of managing my emotional energy. These outlets let me feel heard and seen in a way that is rare to find in relationship with another person. Because in a relationship with another person, like they want to be heard and seen too. So it's hopefully you're going to take turns. And this powerful, like just uninterrupted, open invitation, anytime I want, as long as I want, outlet to let my emotional energy tell the stories that it feels inspired to tell, and to allow that energy to play itself out as much as it possibly wants. And that has been so powerful in terms of turning up the volume on the potential of this powerful emotional energy that's moving through me. And with that growth, with that like solid footing in my emotional energy, my need to numb myself is becoming less and less and less necessary. And I trust, just like we talked about, like it's not unwise that your car has a brake pedal. Like that seems like an okay thing. So let that be okay. Let numbing be a part of emotion management. It doesn't have to be something that we try and work towards extinguishing. It can be something that we integrate and love as a mechanism of custom fitting the pace of our soul's evolution to us and what we're ready for. We are in complete control. We can ride the gas or we can ride the brake as much as we want, and none of it's wrong. So all of it is a matter of bringing our awareness to the process and to what is really happening. And towards the end of simple alignment with our inner being. Like I said, when you feel really, 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 really good, all that means is that you are fully aligned with your inner being. You're seeing the world in that moment the way your inner being sees it. And there's nothing else we ever have to do. Like in the Book of Water that I've been listening to by Stephen Forrest, he talked about like literally this was in Dolores Cannon's book, I've been listening to too many audiobooks, I'm getting them all confused, but it was Dolores Cannon's book, The 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. In that, she talks about these volunteers and their purpose is just to be. Their purpose is just to be happy. Like that is literally all they have to do, and it will change the world, period. By not succumbing to what some may call a dominant vibration of negativity on this planet, by choosing to focus yourself into a space that does feel like bliss, and then hold that bubble and let the negativity exist outside your bubble, and show people that not only is that possible, but they can learn how to do it too. You change the world through holding your own bubble of bliss. That's all we have to do. We just manage your own emotional energy, and the rest of it, it takes care of itself. So this is my practice. This is my soul's purpose. Basically is my self-care, is managing my emotional energy, which so much begins with feeling our emotions. And that's where we come right back to numbing. And even if you numb, like you're a world-class escape artist and you numb all the time, there are still tiny little snippets of emotions getting through. There are, that's how it works. It can still slip in around the cracks of your numbing. So there are pieces coming through, and don't ever try to remove the numbing. Work on the pieces that are coming through. That's really the shift that I'm hoping this all leads up to for your awareness and the dots clicking into place. The numbing takes care of itself. The numbing is a natural part of the process. You can't help but do that when you're in pain. So work on the pieces that are coming through. Work on the pain that's coming up. And if you need support, get a therapist or a life coach or both, and get the support that you need to work through that. And if you can't afford that, there's all kinds of content on YouTube of spiritual teachers and podcasts like this one that are aimed at helping to hold up a light that you can, in your own time, in your own space, in your own home practice, you can put yourself in the light and you can see more clearly what's there. And you can, like my friend said, she intentionally triggers herself by listening to my podcast so that she can heal, so that the stuff can come up, so that she can, mutate that energy into something that feels better. So there's all kinds of free content out there. I can't afford it is no excuse for not changing your life, not taking responsibility for this emotional energy that's moving through you. And again, numbing is not the villain in this story. Numbing is our ally. Numbing is our teammate. And sometimes it's numbing's turn to take over, and that's okay. And whenever there is a piece that gets through, don't run away from it. Go back to the front porch, walk back inside the house. Like, I know it's scary to face these things that come up, especially where we pushed them down to begin with for a reason. So it's all the same. It's all the same reason. And now we're better we have more coping skills. We have more tools to process these truths that are coming forward, these guilty moments that we have about decisions that we made. And we have more tools now than we did back then to make peace with these things and to heal and integrate these pieces back into our whole self. So it's more a process of emotion management, and let the numbing happen however it's going to happen. Obviously, I'm not advocating for people to do this in an unhealthy way or whatever. I'm saying whatever you're doing right now to survive, let that be okay. Let it just be okay. Forget what anybody else in society says. Let it be okay, and let yourself off that hook. And that's one less thing that will be caught up in your sensitive system that will need to be numbed. If you stop fighting with yourself, that's so much of that battle already won. And as you win more and more and more of those internal battles by facing those truths and bringing your self-love to those truths in a way that accepts them instead of rejects them, eventually you need to numb less and less and less, and the problem takes care of itself. So instead of treating the symptom, treat that root cause. Deal with the things that are coming forward and continue to leave the numbing on there, probably because it's on there for a reason. And just deal with the little pieces that are coming through, and let the evolution of that process be completely organic. Numb as much as you feel like you need to. Ride that brake as much as you feel like you need to be safe on your path, to be going forward at least on your path, but go forward on the path. Even if you're moving at 1 mile an hour, face the pieces that are coming through. And if you need help doing that, reach out and get the help that you need to do that, and take ownership of your full potential is waiting on the other side of facing your own true self. So this just moved through me in a way that has been so satisfying. I thank you for listening, and I appreciate so much knowing that I share this space with you. So until next time, dear friends, you take such good care of yourselves, and so will I.